On the big handout that you have from me, where it has the outline in the front, we'll be looking at segment number 1, a review of the spring festivals. Now this segment won't be entirely that long, so we'll take a break after this. The longer ones will be on the fall festivals. I'm going to leave to you, you have a lot of handouts here, I'm not going to go by it verbatim, I'm going to leave to you to read those scriptures on your own. This is more of a review to take us into the fall festivals a little bit later. But I want to bring your attention to that segment 1, that first page there, review of the spring festivals. I encourage you to read Leviticus chapter 23. It lists the festivals of God, starting with the Sabbath, and then the 7 festivals that follow that. And I want to take off on what I did in the introduction. On Leviticus 23, verse 2, Moses was instructed, "Speak unto the children of Israel by God, and say unto them concerning the feast." And what's that Hebrew word? Moedim. Of the Lord, the feasts of the Lord. The Jewish feasts, or what are they?
The Lord's.
They belong to the Lord, not the Jews. And this dovetails exactly with what we saw in Genesis chapter 1:14. "Which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocations," I'll talk about that in a second. "Even these are my feast," my Moedim. What feasts are they? God's feasts. They do not belong to Jewish people. They belong to God, and He's given them to man to be able to experience Him, to know His plan. Now that word where it says holy convocations in the King James, in Hebrew it's Mikra Kodesh, and it literally translates as a holy rehearsal. A holy rehearsal. So these are rehearsal. And when you look at this word rehearsal, when we think about the subject,
Practice before the main event.
the practice before the main event. And what main event do you think that a wedding? Okay. Now, I'll tell you something. God is not going to elope with His bride. Okay. And if you take that out of the equation, those of us that are married, we had practice before that day. We wanted to get everything just right, the best we could, and all that. And then you reach a point you just want to get over with because you want to get on with the marriage. But you have to practice. You have to rehearse. And the aspect of that in the physical world that we live in is also in the spiritual, that God has given us something. And what is it? His Moedim, His festivals, His appointed times. Does that mean that we can do things when we want to do them? No, God says this is on the calendar, this is on the date, this is the appointed time, this is the season, and you should do these things. And these are my holy rehearsals to bring into marriage. And Jim briefly talked about this, but a Hebrew marriage, it doesn't matter what we understand marriage as. We have to go by the Bible to understand the context. We have the term betrothal. We've heard the betrothal, right? Does anybody know what that is? Betrothal? It's not an engagement. That's a Christian myth. Okay, it's not an engagement. A Jewish woman and a Jewish man, when they were betrothed, they were legally married. Okay, they're legally married, but they don't live together. They don't have relations together. The bridegroom goes back to his father's house to begin the process to build a place for them, and when he's ready, he will come back and get his betrothed bride, have another ceremony, because there's actually a ceremony to the betrothal, a marriage ceremony. So in Hebrew understanding, there's two marriages, and there's responsibilities with both stage and rights with both stage. But we have betrothal, and we have then what we call the full marriage, for symbolizing here, the full marriage, when he comes back for her. Here they have full relations. Here there's a legal contract that states that this woman belongs as a bride to this man, and he is going to come back and fetch her to this full marriage. Now, look at Leviticus 23 and other scriptures. You're going to find out that we have 7 major festivals. Okay? The first 4, go over here. The first 4 are in the springtime, approximately on our calendar from March, April, and that time till May and June. Can everybody tell me what the 4 spring festivals are?
Passover, unleavened bread, first fruits, and Pentecost.
Okay. Now, it's interesting because the rabbi said that when you celebrate Passover, well, you weren't really finished when you sacrificed that Passover lamb and ate that Passover meal. And then they said, because you got to celebrate unleavened bread. But when you start understanding unleavened bread and you're participating in the 7 days of unleavened bread, by the way, this is Nisan 14. This is Nisan 15 through 21. And the rabbi said, you have to keep the festival of unleavened bread. You really weren't done with Passover when you kept the festival of unleavened bread. You needed to experience the first fruits of the barley harvest during unleavened bread. And the rabbi said, but you still weren't really done with Passover yet until you understood that the first fruits of the barley was the beginning of the counting of the omer. And there's 49 days, and this is the wave offering Jim talked about, that the priest would wave in the temple an omer of barley. And for 49 days later, the Jewish people would wave before the Lord a barley sheaf in a wave offering to God. But the rabbi said, even during these 49 days of offering this wave offering of barley to the Lord, you still weren't finished with Passover and really got what Passover was all about. You had to come to Pentecost. And by the way, Pentecost is also called first fruits, but on that 50th day, it's the 50th day after the 49 days of the barley. Now you didn't offer barley, now it was waved before the Lord in the temple was wheat. Okay? It's the first fruits of the wheat harvest. And so they said that Pentecost is the Atzeret, or the conclusion of Passover. So what I'm saying by bringing all this out is that Passover to Pentecost is one lump sum. If you don't finish the process, you don't get it. You don't get all of it. You have to finish the process.